And we're live, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. We're live? Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for your patience. I'll call this meeting back to order. At this time, we understand that the audio is not working for the online viewers. We are recording this meeting, though, and then it will be uploaded later today for the public's viewing. I'd like to return the floor, please, to Mayor Smith, who is joining us virtually this morning, so that he's able to share his statement again so that we can get it on recording. Thank you and welcome, Your Worship.
Well, thank you again, Deputy Mayor Snell, and I'll keep it as brief as I possibly can. So thank you. My apologies also. I asked my wife to drop it off me here today. She's forgotten that, so I take full responsibility, but apologies for my dress code today. Ladies and gentlemen, staff and members of the public, as I was saying earlier, I have, you may have wondered where I've been. I can tell you that I have been working back and forth with members of the public through email, text, and other means, and also with staff and council members. But I was admitted to a hospital about 2 weeks ago for a medical issue. I have a pseudoaneurysm that has developed on my right femoral artery, and they can't allow me to go home until that is fixed for fear that it would burst, and if it does, that is life-threatening. So surgery is set for tomorrow around noon hour, and although I'm not looking forward to surgery, I am looking forward to getting it done and into the healing process. And they tell me that the healing process will take about 6 to 8 weeks. So I will be able to be involved and continue doing many things, but certainly will not be at town hall for a bit. I just want to thank our staff, senior staff, and all our staff. But more importantly, our senior staff today and members of council who just attended the was team, and of course, confident full manner. I could not be more thrilled to have Deputy Mayor.
So, Deputy Mayor Snell, I apologize. I feel the connection at the place he's zooming in from is not stable, so we'll just proceed with the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. And thank you, Your Worship, for sharing so candidly with Council and residents this morning. On behalf of Council, we wish you a speedy recovery, and please know that we're all here to support you and your family in any way that we can. To ensure a smooth meeting today, I'll be taking on the role of chair this morning, and the Mayor will be joining us virtually as he's able to in accordance with the procedural bylaw. Councillor White will be taking over my duties as chair of the General Government Business Unit section of the meeting. So at this point, I would now like to turn the table to our Director of Planning to introduce 2 new staff to the Planning Department. Trevor?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, members of Council. I would ask if Mr. Mark Bryan and Ms. Candice Bonnerchuk could just come up to the podium for introductions to Council. So it's my pleasure to introduce our 2 new staff members today. Mark Bryan is our new Manager of Planning. Mark has over 20 years of experience in the municipal sector. Most recently, he was the senior planner with the town of Collingwood. He was also past community planner. And he's also worked for Bradford, West Gwillimbury, and Caledon. Mark holds his professional designations. He's a full member of the Institute of Canadian Planners and is also as RPP, so Professional Planners of Ontario. He has his master's in environmental studies, and he also has his master's in environmental and economic geography. And with him today is Candice Bonnerchuk. Candice also has over 18 years of planning experience Most recently, she was worked for the Simcoe County District School Board. She's also a past planner with the town of Collingwood and a number of other small municipalities. She is also a full member of the Institute, so she has her CIP, and she also has her RPP, which is the Ontario Professional Planners. She also has her Canadian Association of Heritage Professionals, which is the CAHP. So Candace has her Bachelor's of Arts in Geography, and she has a postgraduate certificate in Cultural Planning, and we're very pleased to have them both here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor. Welcome. What a lengthy list of experience. So you're going to be a great asset to this team, and it's such an exciting time to be a part of this community from a planning and development perspective. So on behalf of Council and Mayor Smith, welcome. We look forward to working with you. Thank you. Thank you. And we have another new staff member to introduce as well, and I'll pass the floor to our Municipal Law Enforcement Coordinator to introduce your new staff member.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and good morning, everyone. Michael, if you just want to come up here and give a nice wave. So we are pleased to introduce Michael Newfer, who has joined the bylaw team as a property standards officer and parking officer for the town. Michael brings direct municipal experience in property standards enforcement to the town, including working with the City of Barrie as a property standards officer and a municipal law enforcement officer. During this time, he investigated clean yard complaints. I know how much we like those. Worked to gain compliance and conducted investigations while issuing parking and bylaw infractions. Michael's other work experience includes a collection support agent and a site attendant with the Simcoe County. And Michael also holds a police studies degree from Georgian College. So Michael, if you just want to quickly give a wave and say a few words to everyone. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you very much for your time. I look forward to working with everybody and the nice warm welcome I've received since I've started. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Michael, and on behalf of Council and staff, you too have entered a very important department, you know, especially with this council as one of our council priorities is very much focused on beautification and improving the overall look and experience of our community, and bylaw plays an integral role in upholding those standards. So thank you very much, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on to disclosure of pecuniary interests. I have none that I've been made aware of. If throughout the meeting anybody does have any pecuniary conflict or interest, please let me know at that time. Moving now, we will move into the open forum. Madam Deputy Clerk, do we have anybody registered to speak?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Snell. At this time, there is nobody registered to speak.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address council at this time in regards to any of the items that are on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the approval of the agenda. 4.1, resolve that the contents of the agenda for August 24th, 2023 be approved as circulated. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Belanger, Councillor DeLeo. Any comments or questions? All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to number 5, deputations, presentations, petitions, and public meetings. We do have a public meeting today, which is in regards to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment Z07-23. So this is a public meeting regarding proposed site-specific amendments to the town zoning bylaw submitted for the property legally described as Plan 961, Lot 55, municipal address not yet assigned. The application being considered is the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, town file number Z07-23. This public meeting is an opportunity for the members of the public to learn more about the proposed development. As chair, I will keep the meeting in order and allow the applicant, the public, and the members of council to speak and ask questions. No decisions will be made at this public meeting. It is simply an opportunity to learn and provide feedback. Please be advised that you must make a request in writing to the clerk if you wish to receive any notice of any decision of council regarding this application. Town planning staff will now make a brief presentation and will provide further details with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. I will now turn it, please, to the Director of Planning, Trevor. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council, staff, and public. Mr. Joel Vines is the planner assigned to this matter. Unfortunately, he was unable to attend in person today. He may or may not be online to answer any questions. I'll do my best. I'm a little out of practice, but if you just bear with me, we'll try to get through this together. So today is, again, a public meeting regarding an application for zoning amendment submitted by Mr. Pescuzzo, Andrew Pescuzzo of Pescuzzo Planning, on behalf of Mr. Joe Severino. And he hit the wrong button. Sorry, thanks for that. So we're going to do an overview of the purpose of today's public meeting. We're going to get into the planning application process. We're going to introduce the applications, present the subject lands and the proposed development, and provide a summary of the comments received to date. Which one is it, Andrew? Do you know? Is it this one? Perfect. So in terms of the planning application process, as you can see here, we're approximately halfway through. This is at the public meeting stage. After the public meeting stage, there will be a continuation of staff and agency review of the application, at which point we will be making a staff recommendation and bringing it back to council for your consideration. Council will then render a decision, whether that decision is to approve, deny, or to defer the application for further information, at which point there will also be a 20-day appeal period. In terms of the proposal overview, again, this is an application submitted on a piece of property that is identified on the aerial photo, shown as a red border, just located north of Main Street, west of Stonebridge Boulevard, and east of Park Drive. The subject land is located on the west side of Wood Avenue. The property is approximately 1,100 square meters in lot area. It has a frontage of just under 21 meters along Wood Avenue. The zoning is to the north, low-density residential, which is R1. To the south is medium-density residential exception, which is an R224 zone. To the east, we have an open space OP zone, or it should be OS zone. And to the west, we have low-density residential, which is R1. There is no specific property address as of yet, because we don't assign addresses until there's actually a building permit pulled. But the legal description, as noted by Her Worship, is Lot 55, Plan 961. In terms of the official plan designation, the property is currently designated neighborhood, and in the surrounding areas, we have the designations of downtown core, neighborhood, and open space. The current zoning is R1, which is our residential type 1. And in the area, again, to the south, we have a residential type 2 exception 24 zone, which is for a semi-detached, which was approved by council a couple of years ago. In the area, we also have other R1 zones, open space, downtown core 1 with a holding zone, and also downtown core 2 with a holding zone. The zoning amendment would seek to rezone the property from R1 into a residential type 2 exception zone. And the purpose of the zoning is to allow the development of the lands for a semi-detached dwelling. And each of those semi-detached dwellings would also then have 2 accessory apartments on full municipal servicing. And so the R2 exception zone would also include modified specific performance standards, which Mr. Pescuzzo will get into detail shortly with his presentation. This is a sketch of the proposal, and just to bring to council's attention, the proponent has gone through a consent application with your committee of adjustment to sever the property into half, which was consent B 2523, which has been approved subject to certain conditions. In terms of comments received from the town engineering department, they've provided comment indicating no concerns with the requested ZBA as proposed by the applicant. Enbridge Gas provided comment indicating no objection to the proposed application, but has requested to reserve the right to amend or remove development conditions. From Bell Canada, we have reviewed the proposed development and have provided conditions of approval to be included in any future agreement. From the Hiawatha First Nation, provided comment indicating no objection to the proposed development and no concerns. From the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, they did provide attachments for the consideration of the applicant and to be mindful of things like species of risk prior to any commencement of construction works. And from the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, they've provided comment indicating no objection with the requested zoning bylaw amendment as proposed by the applicant. And in conclusion, again, this is a public meeting as required under the Planning Act. Town are presenting the applicant's proposal. This is not a council-initiated application. A detailed review of the application is still ongoing but has not been completed at this time. And at a later date, staff will be providing a report for council's consideration. If there's anyone who has interest in this matter and wish to be involved or notified, they could just please contact the planning department at the email address there. And also, the application is noted on our active development map, and there's some the detailed documents in support of the application can be found on the website. And thank you very much. And I'll pass it over to Mr. Piscuzzo. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Houghton, Director Houghton, I should say. My name is Andrew Piscuzzo. I'm a registered professional planner here today on behalf of the applicant, Joe. Joe is in the audience as well. Thank you for the presentation being put up. Thanks for the detailed presentation from Trevor. I'm going to try to be fairly brief here. I'm interested in whether we have any comments from the public or any concerns from neighbors or council. Move to next slide here. As Trevor indicated, a consent application is being run concurrently. So zoning bylaw amendment as well as a consent application. The consent was previously approved on the date of July 19th, and we're obviously here in front of you today because one of the conditions is a zoning bylaw amendment. That's condition number 6. Basic site characteristics have already been laid out by Trevor. I think we know where the lot is and what it looks like. It's important to indicate that my client owns the property to the southeast, which is previously approved for semis as well. And there are accessory apartments in the basements of each of those units. So there's 4 rental units that my client has already provided. And as you'll see through the presentation, he's also proposing an additional 4 within the proposal in front of us today, with the potential for actually 2 more detached accessory dwellings in the rear yard. So a total of 10 rental units on Wood Ave. Existing designation we've already gone through. It's just important for me to indicate that the uses that we're proposing are permitted. You can see the list there. Trevor has already indicated that the current zoning is R1. It's obviously on the boundary of the DC or the downtown core zone, so it's my professional planning opinion that changing the proposed zoning from R1 to R2 is good planning. Here you can see the existing residential uses in the R1 zone, which semi-attached units are not permitted, and therefore that's why we're going through the rezoning process. The schematic here to the right is obviously an overhead view of what we're proposing on the property. Not sure if the red light's going to work here or not. So in the bottom section of the screen, this would be Wood Ave. And so the lot going forward, obviously parking at the front with a driveway, which each driveway would indicate or allow for 4 spaces plus 1 in the garage, so a total of 5 parking spaces per semi. And then you can see the obviously the main dwelling and the basement semi-attached units. And then obviously in the rear yard you can see the 2 detached accessory units. What's unique is that we are proposing to link those buildings. There won't be a 1.2 meter setback between the buildings, Not sure if that's been done in your municipality yet, but we're excited about the opportunity. We think it takes advantage of some space in the side yard that is kind of left out. So it's important to note that this is not unique to the province. It's occurring in many other municipalities, and I think it's an exciting opportunity for Wasaga Beach. More schematics of what the layout. This is actually the building to the east, which has already been constructed, and obviously it will be a similar build on the property that we're proposing in front of you today. You can see the garages, you can see the side yard entrances, which would allow access to the basements for the accessory dwellings. And you can see the layout. So upstairs, or the main floor, would be a 3-bedroom rental unit. The basement would be a 2-bedroom rental unit. And then moving forward, this shows the detached accessory buildings. There's 2 of them, obviously split down the middle. They are 1-bedroom units, and these are being proposed in the rear yards, as I indicated previously. Architectural design of what the units in the rear yard would look like. They obviously have their own separate entrances. Residents would park in the parking lot in the front yard, and they would use the sidewalk down the side of the building and enter their unit in the rear yard. So this is the nuts of what we're asking for from council in terms of exceptions to your zoning bylaw amendment. We are obviously generally asking for the rezoning from R1 to R2 to permit the semis. And the exceptions include relief from the driveway provision. So we're required to obviously have a 1-meter side lot line between units. In this case, we're going to have basically a shared driveway down the center. There won't be a gap. It's my opinion that that's a fairly typical thing to do with semis, but we obviously have to include it within the exceptions. Number 2 on this list is relief from the accessory building provision for side yard setback. You can see the section in your bylaw that references the requirement of 0.9 meters to the lot line and a height of 3.7 meters. We can meet the height for the detached accessory building, but we will obviously not be able to meet the 0.9 meter setback to the lot line. In this case, they will be joined or linked together. Item number 3 is the maximum lot coverage. We're requesting that the exception be included to go from 40% up to 45%, and this would allow the accessory building to be constructed in the rear yard. It's my professional and respectful submission that an additional 5% coverage is supportable and good planning, because we're allowing an additional 2 units for rental use within your municipality. And then the bottom item, number 4, is relief from the rear yard setback for the accessory dwellings. So those are it's actually quite limited to the number of exceptions we're requesting, in my opinion, for what I believe is obviously a great planning project and will provide rental housing within your community. Upon publishing the material for submission of this PowerPoint, I obviously hadn't received any comments. It's my understanding that there's no objections from staff or anyone has provided any written negative comments today, but obviously I'm interested in hearing from the public now and understand that it will be open to the public, and I'm happy to answer any questions that council, staff, or the public may have. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much, excuse me, for that thorough presentation. We'll now ask the public to speak if they wish to provide a comment in favor or opposition of this proposed development. Madam Deputy Clerk, do we have anyone online, any members of the public online that would like to speak to this matter?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Snell. We have nobody attending virtually who wishes to speak.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll then turn to the audience here in chamber. Is there anyone that would like to speak, provide comment or question in regards to this matter? Okay, seeing none, I will then turn it to council for any comments or questions. Councillor Timms.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Mr. Severiano and Mr. Scuvio. I just have some concern about and I understand through legislation that the amount of parking is appropriate, but in reality, I'm not sure that all of the residents that will be living in this space can manage with that number of spots and the way it is set up. My second concern is where will people put their bicycles, garbage receptacles, lawnmowers, and all of the equipment that residents gather when they live in this type of housing? Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, and through you, Your Worship. We think this is an exciting project to provide some rental housing in the community. I understand there's some technical concerns related to parking. We think we can overcome those. It's highly possible that there will be residents that will actually not have vehicles, and because they may not be able to afford them. With regard to your comment about storage, it's definitely a great comment. I will take it back to my client, and it's possible that we will be able to have maybe some additional rear yard accessory building storage space, storage within the existing garage as well. My experience is if we're coming down to talking about parking and storage of outdoor stuff, we're probably in the right direction, and there's some stuff that maybe we need to work on just to clean up. So I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you. And a follow-up?
Just to clarify for me, I gathered from when you were speaking that the accessory rental units in the back will not be built at the same time. Did I get that right?
That's correct. At this point, we're going through the zoning pilot process. We think it's a good idea to include the exceptions. It's highly possible that my client may not choose to proceed with constructing the accessory dwellings in the rear yard. However, we didn't want to have to come back to council. I would agree that it's probably going to be a two-phase process, building the semis first and then consideration for the accessory dwellings depending on how the main build goes. Yep.
Thank you. And are there any other comments? Go ahead, Councillor Blanchet.
Yes, thank you very much, and through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, and to planning and our presenter. First of all, to point out to the public, because I always request that we do this, is our official plan is in process, and as a result, some of our bylaws are in the process of being updated, and some of the exceptions and the amendments that are being requested have been approved by this council on a number of other initiatives. This is, the requests are very common in many other municipalities that have already updated their bylaws to more current common building practices. So I think it's important that the public knows that. I kind of applaud this initiative. We're in a housing crisis. We're particularly in an affordable housing crisis for, workforce housing, people, families with incomes that are a little less, that can't, they're priced out of the market, and this is an opportunity to get them into the market. So again, I think it's very appropriate within the area and adjacent to many jobs and sort of mid to minimum wage jobs, and hopefully this is an opportunity to sort of a pilot, but I'd certainly encourage more of that to occur. And again, if I heard this right, is the owner has already built a building that's very similar, that's been approved by council, and there's very little difference between the two. So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Councillor Blanchet, and I'll turn it to Mayor Smith for a comment or question, please.
Nell, excellent presentation. Thank you. I do also applaud this type of construction and this mindset towards moving to more affordable housing, especially here in the downtown core, where hopefully folks who cannot afford vehicles or don't have more than one vehicle. This is very suitable because they can walk virtually to everything they may require. So I think that's a big asset. But I do have one concern if we go back and look at the overhead view where the lot is outlined in red, and I understand that this is just a reference and it may not be accurate, but depending on how accurate it is, I think I see an encroachment there. I believe the house to the right of that, if we're standing on the road, is a new dwelling as well. And so when I seen from that overhead that it looked like the front corner of that house was well within the 6 foot setback, I had some concern there. So I just wanted to see if someone could answer that question.
Go ahead, Trevor. Thank you.
Through the chair to His Worship, the aerial photo on, I believe His Worship is referring to my slide when it had the aerial photo. It was on slide 6. The aerial photos are notoriously skewed because they're taken from an aircraft, and it often makes it look like buildings are encroaching over lot lines. I would suggest that is probably not the case, but we could do with Mr. Pescuzo's assistance and his client. We probably can find a survey of the property since it's already been built and confirm that in the staff report coming back to council that in fact there is no encroachment from the semi that's on the other side.
Thank you for that clarification. Mayor Smith, did you have any follow-up?
Yeah, I think, thank you, Deputy Mayor Snell, and thank you, Trevor. Again, I don't think it's the end of the world if it is. I wanted to bring it up in case it is, so that we can deal with that through the process. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll ask Councillor Eagle, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you. I too am in favor of this type of development. I've always felt here it's kind of that middle area that's been missing in the beach for duplexes and semis. So this is more to staff, I guess, that I'm thinking as we move forward. And infill is fabulous. And recently we've been traveling about, in particular down in London, and Councillor Joe and I did a walk through some older neighborhoods, particularly older neighborhoods with townhomes and such. And what I found most impressive is green space within these. So as we infill, I hope we can find ways to manage to keep even pathways or walkways within even one area. I find that huge, that it just doesn't become a wall of cement, but that we can keep some greenery as we infill. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eagle. Any other comments or questions from council? Okay, I just had a comment as well as a question. I'm familiar with the existing property that has already been developed, and it's a very nice job. It's nice finishings, fits very well. You have to look 3 times to sort of see that it is actually multiple units. And I think it's well positioned, being so close to the commercial location that it is. But I just wanted to clarify that these units will be full-time rentals, or are you looking to do STRs with them, or a combination of the two? Thank you.
So currently they are full-time rental units, and in perpetuity they will be full-time rental units. There's no intent to do short-term accommodation of any kind on the properties. My client also owns other properties within the town which are also rental units, and his pro forma is long-term rentals.
Thank you. That makes me very happy to hear that, because there is, as other councillors have mentioned, definitely a shortage of long-term rentals in our community, as many other communities are faced with the same situation where sometimes rentals are being turned over to short-term, and it depletes the inventory for residents. So I'm pleased to hear that answer. Thank you. Before we finish this matter, is there any other further questions or comments? Okay. Seeing that there are no further comments or questions regarding this application, I now declare that this public meeting is hereby closed. Thank you. Moving forward, 4.1, we'll move to the agenda approval recommendation. Resolve that the contents of the agenda.
Sorry, Deputy Mayor Snell,
sorry.
we already, we're just on to item number 6 now at this time.
Oh, my apologies. Thank you. Government Relations, I'll now ask Director of Strategic Communications and Intergovernmental Affairs, Sandra, to provide a walk-on update, please. Go ahead, Sandra.
Your Worship, members of Council, thanks very much. I'm just pleased to provide a very brief update on the outcome of our attendance at the Association of Municipalities of Ontario Conference. The delegation arrived home yesterday late afternoon. We had a very busy 3 days. I know many of you participated in our delegation. Just to confirm, we did complete more than 7 meetings with ministers and parliamentary assistants, covering a range of issues from housing, affordable housing, which is a very hot topic at the conference for many reasons. We did meet with Minister Clark, for example, on issues relevant to our own community, among a number of other issues that are very important to our full-time residents. We also had some impromptu meetings with political staff in ministers' offices as well. So a very productive, very busy time, and we have been tasked with some follow-up items. We will be providing further information to various ministers and PAs in the coming weeks to continue these conversations that we started.
Thank you, Sandra, and thank you to the delegation for all of the hard work that was done. I'm really excited to hear of all the wonderful connections and successful meetings that were had. Okay, so moving on to consent list. 7.1, community services. We have no items in this business unit, so I'm now going to pass the chair to Councillor Timms for the public works section. Councillor Timms?
Thank you. I will now review the Public Works business section of the Committee of the Whole and advise that item 7.2.2, the recommendation report, Nottawasaga River No Wake request, has been pulled by Councillor Belanger for a separate discussion and vote. Before I read the motion to approve the consent list items, does Council wish to make comments? Seeing none, I will now read the motion to approve the consent list agendas. Resolved that the Public Works section of the Committee of the Whole hereby receive the August 24th, 2023 consent list item 7.2, and that all of the recommendations contained therein be adopted, excluding item 7.2.2, pulled from the motion by Councillor Belanger to be voted on separately. May I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Eagle, seconded by Councillor White. All in favor? Carried. I will now move to item 7.2.2, the recommendation report, Nottawasaga River No Wake request, pulled by Councillor Belanger, who will speak to this item. Councillor Belanger.
Thank you, through Councillor Timms. I am in total agreement with undertaking the process to review the speed of the river. However, the way the motion reads, it leaves it somewhat unclear as to whether we would end up doing anything at the end of this process. I want to remind the public that over the course of my 8 years on council, this topic has come forward a number of times. I've been approached by a fairly high number of residents that have expressed concern over speed of the river. And more concerning to me is the OPP representative that sits on the River Resource Committee, who I believe has an understanding of the knowledge. He's attended all the meetings and discussions. His exact words were, the speed of the river is too high, and it's just a matter of time before we could have a tragedy. So I just want to ensure that we need to approach this process, that if at all possible, that we are going to lower the speed limit on the river. I know there is some, I won't call it controversy, but difference of opinions as to whether a lower speed would improve the situation or make the situation worse. Again, I believe that in fulfilling my responsibility as a councillor, and given the number of people and the OPP that have expressed concern, is I believe we should be looking to lower the speed limit on a river. I believe most waterways in Ontario are at a significantly lower speed than our river. I know that there's probably some uniqueness to our river, but I think we could probably find very similar situations where the speed limit could be as low as 10 or 20 kilometers as opposed to 50. The other thing I would say is that, and it was mentioned this morning, is that we could also look at, it doesn't necessarily have to be the entire length of the river. The amount of traffic as we become closer to the bay, say from Nancy Island to the other, may be of a much greater concern. And the type of craft may vary. It was brought to my attention that, and probably rightfully so, that we have more concerns raised about sea-doos or that style of craft versus boats. So that's something that we could look at. I'm not sure if that's ever been done before, where we're specifying speed limits for specific vehicles, but in the complaints that have come to my attention, it has been more common that it's a sea-doo versus a boat. So those are my comments, and hopefully that's taken into account as we move forward.
Thank you, Councillor Blanchet. Councillor White.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are definitely a couple of issues here, and a lot of it is probably very much unclear to people who maybe don't live on the river or not experienced in boating around the world. There are two issues here on the table. You know, wakes are one of them. The wakes in the river cause problems for people, especially in smaller craft like kayaks and canoes and paddle boards, and speed. And as we know, two things come into play here, that slower boats create bigger wakes. And the larger wakes kill shorelines, they break up the docks, and with the straight steel and wooden and stone walls that we've got down the river, it creates an echoing effect of these large wakes in and out, making it quite unsafe. So I do feel, and my recommendation and my vote on the committee was to maintain the speed so that we could keep those wakes down as much as we possibly can. We are having this issue because we feel that there's too much speeding going on in the river, which means that there isn't enough enforcement. And I do find it interesting that the OPP recommendation is that we lower the speed on the river, but we are unhappy with the level of enforcement for the small amount of boats that speed on the river. If we lower the speed limit on the river, we will have to contend with every boat speeding on the river, and I don't think that you're going to have the enforcement to manage that, and you'll have boater rage issues. A lot of the speed on the river is based on recreational activity with personal watercraft and tubing and these types of activities, and I feel that through this process, maybe that could be addressed more so than trying to adjust the overall speed for all vessels on the river. The bottom line here is that wakes and wake sizes and intensity and all these different conversations that we've been having around here are not something that's enforceable under any piece of legislation. We can enforce speed, but as we know it, that's not happening enough. And therefore, I don't think you'd have the desired outcome. I think slowing the boats down would create more problems and make it much more unsafe. There are plenty of YouTube channels around in Florida for all the governments that have instituted no wake zones or slow speed zones in channels that are river-like, and they're entertaining to watch because of all the multiple boat failures every hour, people sinking and submarining and all these different types of activities that go on because of unsafe boating. I think that the recommendation to educate boaters to properly operate their vessels, to mind their wakes, and to learn the rules of boating is the absolute correct course of action here. And I'm glad to see step one outlined so well with the public education and boating safety top priority in our wonderful river.
Thank you, Councillor White. Are there any other comments or questions? Mayor Smith, did you have a comment or question?
Deputy Mayor Snell and Madam Chair, we'll just give.
I understand.
Oh, there he is.
I understand where Councillor White is coming from with respect to wake, but I think that that is an issue where enforcement needs to be done even further to ensure that people and the province needs to change rules around boating licenses and operation. There are too many people on the water who have not done a proper course or have a license to understand what the ramifications are of wake. And plowing is the problem. If you're trolling, there's very little wake, just as there is if you're up on a plane. So it's the plowing that creates the problem. And unfortunately, some of the biggest boat owners in the river are often the biggest offenders of creating a wake. So I think that the whole river should have somewhat of a no wake zone. And there are certainly areas within the river, I would suggest from Nancy Island or before Nancy Island to the west, out into the bay. I understand how important recreation is to Wasaga Beach, believe me. We all love to get out there and have fun. We cannot put a price on a and we were unfortunate to lose an individual on a personal watercraft in the mouth of the Nottawasaga from the bay just a few weeks ago. And I, for one, don't want to see that happen again, not in the bay, not in the river, anywhere. So I look forward to this report coming back. Certainly hope that it comes back with some recommendations to make some adjustments, if not on the whole river, at least.
Thank you, Your Worship. Any further comments or follow-up, Councillor White?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I certainly understand Mayor Smith's concerns, and I do believe that this issue should be taken a little bit further upstream, if you mind the pun. You know, boating courses and the licensing procedure does allow for very novice boaters to be behind the helm of very large vessels and have an awful lot of impact on other boaters themselves and community safety. So I would definitely applaud an approach where municipalities get together and lobby the government to change the rules. Putting in no wake zones in front of in the river, unfortunately, it's just an unenforceable step. We can put in markers and education to hope that people would mind their wake in certain areas, especially around fuel docks and boat slips. But at the end of the day, there's no violation for a wake. A wake is not an enforceable anything by the police. There's nothing that they can do if you're throwing a wake in front of a fuel dock or whatnot. So I think if we can get behind some lobbying to the government to better control the licensing and operation of vessels, I think that would do a lot more for us than trying to lower the speed limit in the river. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. Any further comments or questions from Council? No. All right. Since there are no further comments, I will read the motion and ask for a mover and seconder. That the report titled Recommendation Report, Nottawasaga River No Wake Request to the Joint Committee of the Whole and Council meeting of August 24th, 2023 be received, and that the Joint Committee of the Whole and Council accept the recommendations from the River Resources Committee on the matter, and that staff be directed to proceed with step 1 of the aforementioned recommendations, including education, awareness measures, community engagement, and non-regulatory alternatives. May I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor White, second by Deputy Mayor Snell. All in favor? Carried. As this concludes the Public Works Business section of Committee of the Whole, I will pass the chair to Councillor Belanger for the Development Services section.
And sorry, prior to moving forward, I just note for the minutes that the mayor was not on for that vote, but it has passed 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Timms. I'll now cover development services, and to my knowledge, there's been no items pulled. Are there any comment on any item from council? Seeing none, I'll read the motion. Sorry. Oh, sorry, is there a comment?
Sorry, Councillor Boulanger, I was getting my sections mixed up. I have a comment for later. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. Are you no comment? Okay. So I'll read the motion. Resolved that Development Service Section of Committee of the Whole hereby receive the August 24th, 2023 consent list, item 7.3, and that all the recommendations contained therein be adopted, excluding agenda items that have been pulled, which are none. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Ego and Councillor DeLeo. All those in favor? That's passed, and I will note that Mayor Smith was not on again, but we had 6 votes in favor. And I apologize, I didn't hear who you passed development or general government to. Okay, so for general government, I'll pass the floor to Councillor White.
And I apologize, before we pass that on, I will note that Mayor Smith has exited the meeting due to technical difficulty with bandwidth at the hospital there. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Boulanger. I will now review the General Government Business Unit of Committee of the Whole. Before I read the consent recommendation, I am aware of a couple of comments for items contained in the report. So I will start with Councillor Timms. I believe you had 2 comments to mention, please.
Thank you, Councillor White. I do want to thank Carly Murdoch and staff on the very robust report regarding short-term rentals. I'm aware that we have a number of members of the community here, and this is a hot topic in their world. I'm very happy to see that we are going to have a fair bit of community engagement within the process, and I'm particularly pleased about that. I think it'll be vitally important for us to make sure we get the communication out there regarding those opportunities. I do want to make mention that as Council Rep on the Economic Development and Tourism Advisory Committee, this item is a very hot topic with our committee as well. So with regards to that, that's all I have to say. I also feel likewise with the budget process, I'm very pleased to see that we are going to be having early public engagement in that process this year. So thank you. That's all I have to say. Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Councillor Timms. And I do believe that Deputy Mayor Snell has a comment with regards to item 7.4.4. Did you want to make that comment now?
Thank you, Councillor White. Yes, I wanted to make some comments in regards to the community safety zone. I want to thank all the staff that was involved in pulling this together excuse me, so quickly and so thoroughly. The town of Wasaga Beach is taking the next step to strengthen its approach to dealing with illegal car rallies. Last week, Council approved a plan that will see the town adopt a proactive, coordinated municipal emergency response in partnership with the law enforcement partners, including the OPP, Fire Department, Municipal Law Enforcement, Simcoe County Paramedics, and Ontario Parks Wardens. It is a tiered response based on the emergency response plan framework that is typically used for natural disasters. The town and this council is laser focused on community safety. Our strategy is prevention first. We are pushing Section 128 of the Municipal Act to its limits to get out in front of this issue. And we will always begin by taking action to ensure cease and desist orders on illegal event organizers. And we will now proceed with the full intent to pursue maximum penalties in all cases. And today we will turn commercial and residential areas of concern in our beautiful town that have been targeted in the past by illegal car rally activity into a protected downtown community safety zone. While we have a robust plan to deal with illegal event organizers and participants outside the boundaries of our town, this new downtown community safety zone will help the town and our law enforcement partners to fine and charge people found to be speeding or stunt driving inside our community. It will double minimum fines and penalties. And it means we can move forward with our other traffic calming measures in these areas, including installing traffic cameras that will help with enforcement. Once again, the town of Wasaga Beach is not looking for escalation. We ask anyone that wants to organize or participate in an illegal car rally to stay home. We strongly recommend that anyone who is coming to our town to enjoy our final events of the summer to leave their modified vehicles at home. And we are prepared to protect our full-time residents, visitors, local businesses, and our brand as a safe, fun, and iconic tourist destination. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for your strong words in support of community safety in our wonderful community. Therefore, we resolve that the General Government section of Committee of the Whole hereby receive the August 24th, 2023 consent list, item 7.4, and that all the recommendations contained therein be adopted, excluding agenda items that were pulled for motion separately, which there were none. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Timms and DeLeo. All in favor? And that passes. This concludes the General Government Business Unit of Committee of the Whole. I will now pass the chair back to Deputy Mayor Snell for the remainder of the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor White. Moving on to number 8, rise and move to council. I'll look at our clerk for a recommendation here, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. With council's indulgence, I do recommend that we waive the break. If so, I'll put the motion on the floor. That Joint Committee of the Whole and Council waive Section 4.4B of the procedural bylaw, and that the Committee of the Whole session immediately move into council session to receive a report on the proceedings of the Committee of the Whole session.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor DeLeo, Councillor White. Any comments or questions? All in favor? And that carries. Thank you. So resolved that the Committee of the Whole session rise and move into the council session to receive a report on the proceedings of the Committee of the Whole session. Moving on to number 9, consideration of adoption of Committee of the Whole recommendation. Resolved that the recommendations of the Committee of the Whole session for the meeting of August 24th, 2023 be adopted as resolutions of council. Can I ask for a mover and a seconder? Councillor Boulanger, Councillor Ego, all those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Number 10, consent list, council. Resolved that the council session of the Joint Committee of the Whole and council hereby receive the August 24th, 2023 consent list item 10, and all that recommendations contained therein be adopted, excluding agenda items pulled from the motion and voted on separately. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder on this one. Councillor DeLeo, Councillor Timms, comments or questions? And all in favor? And that carries. Thank you. So moving on to 11.2, this is Councillor DeLeo, a request for alternatives to fireworks. I'll now pass the floor to Councillor DeLeo for comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Fireworks have been a long cherished tradition during celebrations, but it's important to recognize their impact. While the moment may seem awe-inspiring for some, for many people and animals, it is also a needless, disruptive environmental and traumatic health hazard. For animals, fireworks can be particularly distressing. It has been documented that nesting birds may leave their nests, deer and other wildlife may become distressed and disoriented, running into roads, and even in our homes, the explosions cause domesticated animals to become fearful. Some hiding, some howling, and some running away in fear. In 2010, at a New Year's celebration in Beebe, Arkansas, some 5,000 blackbirds dropped out of the sky, pelting residents in the head. Birds also have panic attacks at night, causing more mass deaths. Deer fling themselves into roads and cars. Horses have heart attacks and keel over. Wild animals raising babies abandon their dens in fear. Fish and other animals perish after ingesting firework debris. Companion animals have anxiety and panic attacks. Bees become so disoriented they don't go back to their hives. For people, fireworks can also be distressing and triggering. Those who have experienced wars and suffer from PTSD may be triggered due to the explosions. And let's not forget those who came from war-ravaged countries. Having loud explosion noises may cause distress. Then there's the environmental impact of fireworks. In a time where the climate should be front of mind in all policy decisions we make politically and socially, fireworks are unjustifiable. Everything that goes up must come down. And all heavy metal salts and chemicals used to create those spectacular chemical reactions end up polluting the air, water, and soil. Greenhouse gases, aerosols, and toxic particulates literally explode into the atmosphere every time we set off fireworks, all contributing to climate crisis. As we move forward, the adoption of alternative to traditional fireworks is gaining momentum. Laser shows. These displays offer captivating patterns and colors without noise or environmental harm. Drone light shows. Coordinated drones create innovative sky spectacles. Collingwood Downtown BIA presented a drone show. The show featured 200 drones creating colorful images in the sky over the harbor. I understand also Mississauga lit up the sky with a wonderful drone tribute show honoring Hazel McCallion. Then there's a music and light synchronization. Combining music and synchronized light displays can create a captivating, mesmerizing performance. Now, due to advancement in technology and an increased interest in alternative visual displays, their costs are becoming more competitive with traditional firework displays. It's possible that in some cases, alternative displays might even be more cost-effective, especially when considering factors like safety, environmental concerns, and the desire for more unique and memorable experiences. Communities worldwide are taking proactive steps. In July 13, 2023, Woodstock City Council voted in favor of creating a bylaw that would ban the sale and discharge of consumer fireworks. December 2nd, 2019, Medicine Hat City Council passed a bylaw to ban the sale of fireworks. Banff, Canmore, City of Prince Albert, and Edmonton also followed suit. Brampton prohibits fireworks. The ban includes the use, sale, display, purchase, distribution, and possession and discharge within city limits. Caledon also followed suit. City of London councillors are also looking into banning public fireworks. Now this is interesting. City of Mission, BC, their bylaw indicates an organization can apply for special permit at City Hall, but must hold a current fireworks operator certificate issued by Natural Resources. So in conclusions, in essence, it's crucial to strike a balance between the joy of celebrations and the well-being of the environment, animals, and individuals from diverse backgrounds and those suffering from PTSD. Exploring sustainable alternatives ensures safety for everyone. By considering these options, Wasaga Beach can emerge as a pioneer in responsible festivities, attracting visitors and delighting residents while fostering inclusivity. I recommend asking staff to investigate alternatives to traditional fireworks and investigate cost estimates and comparison from providers. Let's lead by example within Simcoe County. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor DeLeo. Are there any comments or questions from Council? Go ahead, Councillor Blanchet, Councillor White, and then Councillor Eagle.
Yes, through you, Deputy Mayor. This came up in the last term of council when we signed an $89,000 contract for 3 fireworks shows, and at that time I had opposed that motion and suggested the alternatives. I will also say, and thank you very much, your report was very well done. But one of the things with the alternatives, whether it be a drone or whether it be a laser light show or whether it be a colored water fountain show, one of the beauties of that is we don't have to do that just on special occasions. We could do that every night at sunset. You know, the initial investment, of course, but drones, of course, are weather dependent on wind. But some of the others, I think everyone's familiar with I forget the park in Disney World, that's the adult section, you would know, Andrew, but they do a laser light show every night, and it's quite spectacular. There's no noise, and again, it can be done every night. So that's another benefit, and I would fully support us being a community to move in that direction.
Sorry, Deputy Mayor, will we take that as a second for the staff report from Councillor Belanger?
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Ego, and then Councillor White, sorry.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, Councillor DeLeo, that was a most impressive presentation. I, too, can grumble about fireworks, as most of us do, but you covered areas I hadn't really thought of, and the PTSD was one of them. I hadn't thought that way. And the alternatives are exciting. We're moving ahead in a new world, and I think it'd be very exciting to see the things that we will come up with. So I strongly recommend, yes, asking staff, and I know they'll be on board with looking into this, and thanks again for that. It was great.
Councillor White?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Through you, great report and presentation, Councillor DeLeo. I fully support everything that you said there. You know, fireworks, it's a great tradition. I love going out on my boat down the river to watch them out on the bay, but I do find that the hazards, as you mentioned, are very valid, and I do feel that an evolution to laser or drone shows would be very unique and far more entertaining. So I look forward to this report coming back to council as well.
Councillor Timms?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Snell. I have nothing new to add, but support your motion.
Thank you, Councillor Timms. Sorry, go ahead. Councillor DeLeo?
Thank you. With Councillor Belanger saying that we can do light shows every night if we wanted to, next year when we do our 50th anniversary, I thought how spectacular if we can display, like each year, every 10 years, as a light show, just to show the evolution of Wasaga Beach and where we are today. I think that would be incredible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor DeLeo. I will just quickly add 2 comments. I thank you for the report as well, very detailed. And I had the opportunity when I worked with Stonebridge to coordinate the laser show there, and it was so well received. The parents standing and bringing their young children up on their shoulders so that they could stand up and touch the lasers, you know, in the air, was quite exciting and so well received. And also too, I just was at the GNE or the CNE at a concert, and they did a drone show. Once the sky got dark, and it was quite neat as well. And I think also too, just given our most recent climate activity, especially in regards to wildfires and things like that, I think that's another important piece that could be averted or help to be controlled with this opportunity. So I'm super excited to see that go as well, and I look forward to hearing that report. No further comments or questions in this matter? Okay. Yep, so we'll just call the vote then. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so I'm not aware of any notices of motion. Are there any at this time? Okay, seeing none, we will now move towards closed session. Resolved that pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, as amended, the next portion of the August 24th, 2023 Joint Committee of the Whole and Council meeting will move into closed session to consider the following matters: Twin Pad Arena and Library food concession and pro shop leases, event on municipal property, the minutes of Joint Committee of the Whole and Council for August 10th, 2023. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Ego, Councillor DeLeo, all those in favor? And that carries. We'll just take a moment to move into close. Thank you.
And we're live, Deputy Mayor Snell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Clerk. I will now